Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. May your day be filled with love, the love of family, friends, self, and a divine love that holds us all. Love, whether romantic love, familial love, or the love of friendship, is grounded in empathy. You cannot love someone without seeking to understand their feelings, what they want and need, and where they're coming from. This is fundamental to how we connect with other people. Active love and compassion for others we know and don't know requires us on some level to, as the saying goes, put ourselves in their shoes, or to imagine ourselves in their place through listening to them and their stories. As we continue with our theme year on the stories of our lives, today I invite us to reflect on what it means to enter the narrative or story of others' lives, and whether this is even possible. Canon Australia, the camera company, did an experiment in creative thinking and photographic perspective in which they brought together 6 photographers and 1 subject. The organizer told each of the photographers, "You're about to meet Michael." And each photographer received a different bit of information about who Michael is. He's a self-made millionaire. He saved somebody's life. He's an ex-inmate. He's a commercial fisherman. He claims to be a psychic. He's a former alcoholic. "Here's your camera," the organizer said. "I'd like you to flesh out the essence of who he is." So each photographer took this information and ran with it. Some asked Michael, "What do you want out of this? What do you want the photograph to say about you?" Other photographers began constructing their own narrative about Michael. "I think you're a guy that puts yourself out there." "I learned that he's incredibly brave," said another. The photographers said that they wanted to see Michael's nature and to bring out something of who he is in their photos. After the photo shoots, they came back together to view the collection of 6 different photos. All had a very different feel, and they even remarked, "It looks like 6 different people." "Not everything I told you today was true," said Michael. "I'm not a fisherman or an alcoholic or a millionaire. I've never been in prison. I've never saved someone's life. And I'm not a psychic. In fact, I can barely spell the word." The lesson of the experiment? What you see in a photograph tells you more about the story of the photographer and what they were constructing than about the actual subject of the photo. The photographers tried to put themselves in Michael's shoes, but what came out of that was more a reflection of themselves than of Michael. While reading about empathy recently, I came across one blogger who said, "Don't put yourself in other people's shoes because you will end up with more than just stinky feet." As the photography experiment revealed, the photographers thought that they understood how Michael felt and who he was, but they actually only understood how they would feel in his situation. Empathy, true empathy, requires humility. When we're humble, we know that we cannot be in another's shoes or see directly through their eyes. But we can listen and learn about their story, seeking to understand their perspective while acknowledging that we may never fully understand. Max Warren, an Anglican vicar and missionary raised by Irish parents in India, says, "Our first task in approaching another people, another culture, another religion, is to take off our shoes, for the place we are approaching is holy. Else we may find ourselves treading on people's dreams. More seriously still, we may forget that God was here before our arrival." Max Warren's message is the message of our reading this morning from Exodus. Moses approaches God in the burning bush to see how it could be that the bush was on fire but did not burn up. "Do not come any closer," God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Just as Moses was on holy ground approaching God, we are on holy ground when we encounter and seek to understand another's narrative. Warren's message is also our church's approach to stories in religious education. We seek to discover the truths present in every story. But to do this, we must take off our shoes, leaving behind the dust and dirt and mud that accumulates on those shoes, leaving behind the things of our day and the baggage we carry, because these things can muddy what we hear. When our shoes are off, we can approach the story, whether a sacred story such as the one of Moses, the story of another person, or the story of God, with an attitude of respect, curiosity, and reverence, so we can receive its gifts and connect with it. Taking your shoes off is a symbolic act of humility, and a very different act than trying to put someone else's shoes on. I want to share another story with you, the story of a woman's life that illustrates this distinction. Michelle Sullivan, an innovator in corporate philanthropy, is a little person. She is 4 feet tall and uses a wheelchair to get around. She shares in a TED Talk about the importance of reimagining the way we view each other and ourselves, acknowledging that none of us are only what you see on the surface. As a child, Sullivan knew that the world was not built for someone of her size. She was very self-conscious, aware of others' stares and giggles, and so she hated to go out in public. When she did, she often hid behind her parents' legs, thinking nobody could see her. She has found ways to overcome this fear of how others see and treat her through what she calls her gift of gab, which enables her to connect with others instead of avoiding them. This connection with others also makes it easier for her to ask for help when she needs it. The main message of her TED Talk, however, is that connection and true understanding are not the same. There is so much that we cannot see and cannot know. Do not believe that you can walk in someone else's shoes, she says. Simply stated, I will never know what it is like to be you, and you will never know what it is like to be me. And because of that, we must adopt a new way of giving of ourselves. We can't walk in one another's shoes, but we can do something better than that. With compassion, courage, and understanding, she says, we can walk side by side and support one another. Michelle Sullivan's perspective suggests that empathy is not experiencing the world through the same lens as another, but listening to them and going with them, even if just for a moment, into their feelings and experiences, into the story of their life. This is true for all kinds of relationships, with romantic partners, friends, family, acquaintances, and even strangers. Even if we can't walk in their shoes, we can bear witness to their experience, be by their side, and support them. That, too, is empathy. One organization that lives this kind of empathy through partnership is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. The UUSC advances human rights and social justice around the world through grassroots collaborations. Their mission states that their work is grounded in the belief that all people have inherent power and dignity, a belief that connects back to our Unitarian Universalist principles. As we begin the season of Lent this week, our church is embarking on a Lenten Service Project to support the work of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee and our local partner and February 1st Sunday collection recipient, the North Texas Food Bank. Giving something up in service to others is a common spiritual practice for Lent. When we give something up, it helps us to look inward and more deeply understand the fragility of life, realizing that what sustains us is our connection with the holy, with each other, and with this earth that we call home. Our Lenten Service Project invites each of us to give something up so that we can share the wealth and connect both with local neighbors and the work that the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee is doing around the world. We will feed our neighbors with a food drive for the North Texas Food Bank and invite UU Service Committee partners to be guests at our table. Beginning this afternoon, we will have over 10 locations around the Dallas area, including here at the church, where you can drop off food for the North Texas Food Bank and pick up materials to participate in the Guest at Your Table program. There are also ways for those not in Dallas to participate. When I was growing up Unitarian Universalist, my church participated in Guest at Your Table. The religious educator would prepare her Guest at Your Table box, pour some cereal into it, and just before the milk was poured into the cardboard box, the kids would always yell out, "No!" And we all came to understand what it really means to feed a guest at your table. Throughout Lent, we can feed the guests at our tables with financial contributions, which will go to support the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee's grassroots partners around the world. And each week in the DU, we will share stories about these partners in their own voices. You can learn more about how to participate in this project, whether you're here in Dallas or around the world, on our church's website. But I do want to share a video message from the Reverend Mary Catherine Mourn, the president of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, about the impact that our church can have through our participation.
Good morning, First Unitarian. I'm Reverend Mary Catherine Mourn. I'm president and CEO of our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And I'm really happy to be joining you this morning and glad for this chance to thank you for participating in UUSC's Guest at Your Table program. Actually, I'm pretty sure that the first time I ever participated in Guest at Your Table, it was when I was a member of First Unitarian, when I was a student at Perkins School of Theology. UUSC has been offering congregations this opportunity to learn more about our work and connect with our partners through Guest at Your Table for over 40 years now. I'm also glad to learn that First Unitarian is inviting the North Texas Food Bank to be part of Guest at Your Table as well through a food drive. Our congregations understand the importance of being engaged in justice and bringing our values to the larger world in the justice work we do. At UUSC, we're really glad to offer an opportunity for congregations to participate in the work of international human rights through our programs and partners. I hope you will enjoy learning about some of our programs through meeting our 4 guests this year. I especially want to highlight 2 of our guests this morning. They're actually partners who I had the opportunity and the privilege to meet just a year ago. Suja is the director of the Elam Empowerment Center in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, a community center that serves the roughly 200,000 Rohingya refugees who live in Kuala Lumpur. Suja was a refugee himself and now has created a program that provides educational opportunities, civic education, and other opportunities for learning and growing and supporting one another through the Elam Empowerment Center. I hope you'll enjoy learning about him. Chief Sherelle is one of the leaders of the Biloxi, Chitimacha, Choctaw tribe in South Louisiana. Chief Sherelle and her community have been partners with UUSC for several years, and we're really excited about some work we're doing with the tribes in South Louisiana and also some of the tribes in Alaska in seeking support for them as they are trying to determine their own future in the face of the impacts of climate change on their communities. This past fall was especially hard for Chief Sherelle's community because of the hurricanes that hit South Louisiana this year. We're so grateful for their partnership and excited about the work we're doing together, and I hope you will be inspired when you learn more about it through Guest at Your Table. Thank you so much for being part of UUSC, for learning about our programs. I hope you feel inspired and want to become part of our work. Thank you so much.
We are launching this project today, and I'm sharing it with you here because the project invites you into a spiritual practice of sacrifice, empathy, and generosity. Through hearing the stories of others and committing to support their work, it helps us to more fully understand how we are connected to them and that we are all part of the same holy reality. Practicing empathy towards those whose life is very different from ours reminds us that while their struggle may not be our own, we are bound together through the interdependence that is part of our faith. Wherever you are joining us for worship this morning, I invite you to take off your shoes. Or maybe they were already off. In the coming weeks, we will hear the stories of many people. Take off your shoes when you encounter these stories, for there lives the holy. Approach them with a reverent and curious mind and an open heart to see how you might walk alongside them in the days ahead. I trust that you will not only learn a great deal about these partners, but also about yourself. May it be so, and may it be a blessing to us all. Amen.